DocTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
Hey folks, welcome to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about something that's pretty simple, but yet has a lot of moving parts. That's an injection. Whether we're injecting antibiotics or vaccines, what kind of needles, where the injection sites are, it's things we deal with on a day-to-day basis that we're going to talk a little bit about today. Thanks for joining me.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
About 6 jumps later, I was laying on the ground and thinking, boy, my shoulder sure hurt. I kept waiting and it didn't get better and didn't get better. I'd heard about Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center on the radio. Gotten down there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 11:30 the procedure was all over, and it just kept getting better and better. And within 6 weeks I was back digging post holes and doing the other hard work that I'd been doing before the accident. And I'm really pleased. It's really worked out well for me.
Kansans have a new choice for Medicare supplement insurance plans. With Medicare supplement insurance plans from Kansas Farm Bureau, you have access to 4 levels of coverage, affordable rates, and service from an organization that served Kansans for more than 100 years. For more information on Kansas Farm Bureau Medicare supplement plans, including rates and to apply, visit kfbhealthplans.com.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
ValleyVet.com, ValleyVet.com, Valley Vet Supply.
Closed captioning brought to you by Vet Gun with Amel and new AMA Abamectin Vet Caps, the 1-2 punch against horn fly resistance from AgriLabs.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome to Doc Talk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson. I'm here at Kansas State University, and we want to talk about something today on Doc Talk, and it may seem pretty basic to y'all and something that is not on the top of your list, but it's something that's so important, and it's about needles, it's about syringes, it's about providing injections for animals. And when we start to think about injections, the first thing I think about is beef quality assurance when it comes, or pork quality assurance, or PQA plus, different programs that are out there that were core to development of proper injection site placement and proper needle usage and different things to that nature. So when we start out with injections, the first thing we think about is the injection site. And now that depends on if we're going to do subcutaneous, intramuscular, or intravenous, and that would be sub-Q, IM, or IV. Obviously, if it's IV, we're going to locate a vein, but if it's sub-Q or intramuscular, we have a common injection site on cattle. And there's some logic to that injection site on cattle. It is here, as you can see on this diagram, the injection site triangle. I can remember back in the day when we used to give everything in the top butt or in the round, and what we found was, like this picture, we found placement of that intramuscularly in the round was destroying so much good tissue in beef that it cost us a lot of money at the time of slaughter. It also was not very good for animal well-being because of the pain and the lameness because of injection site issues. So, through Beef Quality Assurance, we moved that injection site from the round and the top butt to the neck. And we have this injection site triangle, and if we peel back the layers, you can see that that bottom border of the injection site triangle is the vertebral column. Our top border, or our dorsal border to that injection site triangle, is the nuchal ligament. That nuchal ligament runs from the pole to the withers, and it's what keeps the cow's head from being able to move as they walk. The cow's head is extremely heavy. That nuchal ligament is about the size of a rope. And it's very important that we don't nick that or we don't inject that, because that will cause neck stiffness and pain for the animal. And then the caudal border, or the border towards the back, as you can see here, is the point of the shoulder. And that point of the shoulder is actually a whole muscle cut now, today. And if we catch that, we can cause damage to that animal where we lose that muscle and lose some beef for the carcass. If you inject an animal within that triangle, and I run a needle from one side of the neck to the other side, a long needle, obviously, I would hit hide, muscle, hide. There aren't that many nerves, there aren't big blood vessels, there isn't a lot of tissue there that is going to cause damage or carcass loss. So that is the reason why we come up with that injection site triangle for any sub-Q or for any intermuscular injection. That's where we want to be. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about injection site size, and we'll talk about some of the different equipment that you can use. Thanks for watching DocTalk. Hey folks, Dr. Dan here. Welcome to Cattle First, as sponsored by Beringer Ingelheim Vet Medica. And the term today, biosecurity. Biosecurity is security. It's like having a bouncer that keeps pathogens out and keeps disease out of your herd. One of the best tools you can use for biosecurity is a proper vaccination program, and work with your veterinarian on that. The second one is introduction of new animals. And when we bring new animals on the farm, making sure that if there's a disease that is important that we test for, that we have that done prior to bringing them on the premise. And if they haven't been, then we have a place to quarantine them until we can get the diagnostics back, I think is vitally important. Talking to your neighbors as cattle lean across the fence and communicate with each other, making sure that you have a community-wide biosecurity plan and vaccination plan, vitally important. Keep the disease out, be the bouncer.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people, just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson. We're here at Kansas State University, where I am the Jones Professor of Production Medicine and spend a lot of time in our industry giving shots with these with syringes and needles and things that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis. And not all needles are created equally, not all syringes and things to that nature. But as we talk about injection site placement, one of the things that we have to understand is that we have products with different amounts of dosage. Some products that we give are 5 cc's per hundredweight. So if we have a 5-weight calf, it's a 25 cc injection. Some of these products are 1.1 cc's per hundredweight. So we have a 5-weight calf, it's 5.5 cc's. And making sure that you read label directions and you understand the proper injection sites. There are very few products today, only a couple on the market, that require intramuscular injection. It used to be in the day of the old clostridial vaccines. You all remember the blackleg vaccines that were the 5 cc doses IM, and we would inject that and it would cause incredible tissue damage. And we found that even tissue damage from injection sites on a calf at branding could still be there, be present, and show up at the time of slaughter. So we've converted almost all of our products to lower dosage, to subcutaneous products that cause less tissue reaction, but we still have to pay attention to how we inject those. So if I'm processing calves at branding, one thing is that I like to put products on both sides of the neck, evenly distribute them. And if I am putting a vaccine on one side and I'm deworming or using a parasiticide, I want to use the old rule of a hand width apart on my injections. Okay, so that I'm not giving them right on top of the other. I don't know that they interfere, but it makes sense to me that if one product might cause contamination or cause a little irritation, it might decrease the ability of the other product to actually be absorbed. So I put some space between those when I'm giving those injections. The other thing that is important to know, if you have an animal that's sick, and let's say we're going to use an antibiotic that requires 25 cc doses we discussed earlier. Well, we only want to inject 10 cc's of a product per injection site. So if I have 25 cc's, I'm going to have 3 injection sites. 10 cc's, 10 cc's, 5 cc's. Again, I want to make the practice of having a hand's width apart from those different injections within that injection site triangle. The reason being is these products were developed on 10 cc dosages or increments of within that dose to measure the payout. If we give too big of a dose in one area, just like if you blow up a balloon, you notice that when you first make 2 puffs, you get a lot of progress, and then as the balloon gets bigger, you make less progress, or it seems like less progress. Well, that ability for that product to be absorbed in a bigger bolus, a bigger balloon underneath that skin, decreases. So your withdrawal time potentially could decrease, or the absorption rate of that product to the animal can decrease if you give one big dosage in one spot rather than spreading it out the way that it was administered at the point in time when they got approval for the product. When we come back, more on injection sites and needles here on DocTalk.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for that grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well in their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but yet we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we'll be glad to answer it and work with you.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com. This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
All right, welcome back to DocTalk. We're talking about injection sites, and we're going to talk about the difference between sub-Q and IM, okay? And the big difference is for sub-Q and IM, the first thing is needle size, okay? Almost always within the beef industry, we're going to use 16 gauge. I use a lot of 16 gauge needles, pretty much exclusively. I will use some 18 gauge, the green cap or pink cap, 18 gauge on smaller calves, just because it's less. The smaller the needle, the smaller the hole, the less the pain. Obviously, in small animals, we'll use 20 gauge and 22 gauge needles, but I will routinely use the 16 gauge gray cap. The orange needle is the 14 gauge, and this is a big bore and is rarely used. We use this more for intravenous administration of products than we do for sub-Q. But the other difference I want you to know is that the size of the needle, or the length of the needle. So we'll use 16 to 18 gauge needles, and if we're going to give a subcutaneous injection, we're going to use the 5/8 or the 3/4 inch needles, okay? If we're going to use intramuscular administration of a product, we want 1 inch or 1.5 inch needles. So that's the first thing to understand. The second one then is to understand how we make those injections. And I have some pictures here showing the difference of where that product is going to be deposited. For a subcutaneous injection, we want it to be between the skin and the muscle layer or the fascia of that muscle. If it's intramuscular, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we go through the skin, through the sub-Q area, into that muscle and deposit it within the muscle area. And so the difference is that when we used to do sub-Q injections, we used to train what we call the tenting method, okay? And we would say, pull up the skin, and then as you pulled up the skin, you would inject behind that tent, okay? And today there are some products that if we inject ourselves, and if you have an infected needle or something, you stick your hand, it can cause some infections in knuckles or arthritis or things to that nature. So we want to keep your free hand away from the chute. We want to give the injection with just one hand, and what you're going to do is we're going to go at a 45-degree angle with a smaller needle to make sure that we're depositing that between the skin and the fascia or the muscle. So just going in, 45-degree angle, shorter needle, 5/8 to 3/4. On the other hand, if we're going to do an intramuscular injection, we want to go perpendicular. So we will make sure that when we take that needle, we go straight in. That needle is going through the skin, through the fascia, and it is being deposited. So perpendicular, one hand for intramuscular, 45-degree angle with one hand if we're going for the subcutaneous. If we're going to do the intravenous, the two best places to do intravenous injections, the jugular vein in the neck of the bovine, make sure you have good restraint. And the other one would be to get a blood sample would be in the tail vein of the ruminant. Not a lot of injections there, but it is available. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about changing needles and keeping them clean. Some of the things that are very important to preventing diseases that you could transfer to your cattle through injections right here on DocTalk.
At Farm Credit, we partner with America's farmers who work hard each and every day to grow the food that we all enjoy. It's not an easy task, but it's an important one. Farm Credit is proud to work with farmers and ranchers, lending support in rural America.
I'm back for a second visit with Enzo Discoveries and doing another ultrasound lab. I greatly appreciate all the effort they put into continuing education and bringing teachers like Cooper Williams down, who's just so wonderful at teaching all the structures and how to properly use our diagnostic tools. I use the Enzo Discoveries PRP product quite frequently and really love its ease of use and how functional it is, how quick it is to respond. I really enjoy the small tube size, the way that we can pack around a small centrifuge, use the kit on site, small, compact, easy to use, easy to carry, and how they've constructed the stepwise process in using the kit, making it so easy, and having the instructions there on the inside of the box makes it really functional. Regenerative medicine has kind of become a mainstay of practice now. We see so many degenerative injuries to soft tissues within horses, and having these regenerative modalities now to improve the healing pattern, to improve the function and quality of life of our patients. Just getting more adept, especially at cervical ultrasound, the cervical facets of the neck and the pole. That's an area where there's so many structures that crisscross, then trying to identify what structures what and which ones will actually have pathology versus what's a normal variation. And also looking through, especially the stifle. There's so many different facets to ultrasound and trying to figure out which structure is what and which direction they're going, and just also how to position the probes properly to get the proper views. Everyone can always learn how to do a different modality and how to get more adept at using the diagnostic tools we have available now.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DocTalk. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson, and I'm here at Kansas State University where I'm the Jones Professor of Production Medicine, and we're talking about injection sites. And one of the things that I want to talk about with injection sites is not necessarily just about giving the proper injections, but I want to talk about making sure that we have clean needles. And the ways that we have clean needles is, one, we change the needles often. If you take a look at this microscopy picture from Iowa State University and the Iowa Beef Council, it's amazing to me as you watch the change from a brand new needle to one that's been used once to one that's been used 6 times or multiple times, how quickly the tip of that needle deteriorates and the barbs are formed, which just cause increased pain and tearing of tissue with cattle. Okay, so that's number one reason to be changing needles on a frequent basis. The other reason is to be thinking about the transfer of disease. There are diseases such as anaplasmosis that when we use a needle that has the blood on it from an infected animal and we inject the animal, we can actually transfer anaplasmosis from one animal to the other with contaminated needles. One of the things that we recommend is that we clean needles between uses. So if we're not going to change them, we're going to clean them between uses. So we will use a painter's container where we'll put a sponge, and we'll either add one of 2 compounds in that sponge, as we're going to take the needle and wipe it from that sponge, as you can see here in this picture. If it is a product that is not a modified live vaccine, then we will use chlorhexidine or some sort of disinfectant within there. if it's your Ivomec, if it's an antibiotic, if it's a killed vaccine, things of that nature, we'll do that and we'll wipe the foreign material off of that needle, okay? We don't stick the needle in the sponge because we don't want to get pieces of sponge in the needle, but we wipe the needle on the sponge and we clean the outside of that needle. We get removing fecal material or things that as we entered the last animal we're taking off. However, if it's a modified live vaccine, we don't want to use chlorhexidine or a disinfectant. We'll use water instead. Tap water works just fine. And we're just trying to get the outside contamination off that needle, fecal matter. But the reason why we only use tap water is because that chlorhexidine or that disinfectant can wick up our needle, get into our syringe, and our modified live vaccine becomes a modified dead vaccine. So to keep that viable, to keep that working, keep our needles, you know, we want to have constant changing of needles in groups. And if you have anaplasmosis in your herd, or you think that you have anaplasmosis issues, you want to be changing needles between every animal. And people say, well, I'm not going to change needles between every animal. And I just say, well, I'm sure glad that my doctor does before I come in for my tetanus vaccines, or when I go in for my annual physical and I'm going to get a shot. I'd hate to be the 10th person in line and say, well, I'm just trying to save a little money on these needles. I guarantee you'll have the 8 a.m. appointment if that's the case. Anyway, thanks for watching us today. I hope you learned something. Remember, if you want to know more about us at DocTalk, you can find us at www.doctalktv.com. Always work with your local veterinarian. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson, and I'll see you down the road.
Closed captioning brought to you by Vet Gun with Amel and new AMA Abamectin Vet Caps, the 1-2 punch against hornfly resistance, from AgriLabs.
For more information about this program or previous programs, go to DocTalkTV.com.
DocTalk was brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger-than-life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org.
Clyde Sutton, Ness City, Kansas. Lived on this place all my life. About a year and a half ago, got to where I couldn't saddle a horse. The pain was terrible. Read about stem cell. First it wasn't for me, then they started doing neck and back. Went and had it done. As you can see, I saddled a horse. I'm still building fence. Love to shoot a shotgun rifle, and I'm able to participate, not like I used to, but nevertheless I can do the things I used to do, and life is good.